Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for attending this inaugural talk, actually. This is our Game Changers webinar, which is part of the Management School Alumni Speaker Series here at the University of Liverpool. So a very warm welcome to each and every one of you. Thank you very much for sparing a little bit of your time, perhaps during lunch or maybe in a different time zone in a different part of the world. We have people, obviously, at a global level. So our talk for today will be by an ex-alumni, obviously, which is Paresh Mistry, who I will introduce in a moment and then pass over to as well. We've got a number of questions, a number of key things to chat about, so I hope you'll enjoy those very much. But before I do so, let me just say a few words about Paresh before we show you just a short video around some of his operations. So Paresh is the founder and managing director of ROLABOTIC, which is a boutique advisory and execution firm that is disrupting the established consulting giants. They have independently advised some of the world's largest companies on innovation, transformation, digital integration, and robotic process automation, known as RPA. They focus on three principles, namely the three Ps, which are people, purpose, and prototypes. Paresh is also a non-executive director and and an investor in various sections of the industry sectors, specializing and supporting underrepresented founders and entrepreneurs. He is a chartered accountant and an MBA graduate with a strong background in finance, strategy, and management consulting. So they're just a short few words about Paresh himself. But before we jump to the great man himself, I'd just like to share with you a very short video about some of his operations. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much for sharing that video, Lisa. I do appreciate it. So a few things to mention in terms of housekeeping before I hand over to Paresh. Initially, don't forget that this session will be recorded. So just to make you aware of that, but it also means you can watch the recording back or request it if you see fit. In terms of your audio, if you could keep your audio off, that would be wonderful, just to keep feedback off the line, but feel free to share your video if you'd like to have that on. If you have any questions during the session, and we very much welcome questions, please post those in the chat panel. I can see people already wishing each other good morning, which is lovely to see, or maybe good afternoon, as I said, if you're more on the APAC side rather than on the Americas side of the world. So I think that's everything in terms of administration. So what I'm going to do, first of all, I do have some questions which have already been drafted for Paresh, which I will chat through with him in a moment. But I think it'd be perhaps more apt at this stage if I could just ask Paresh to expand on that introduction a little bit and tell us a few words about himself and his alumni journey. Paresh.
Fabulous. Thank you, Gavin. Thank you, Lisa. And hello to everyone, fellow alumni from Liverpool and current students. So, yeah, let me start from the beginning, guys, maybe. I went to do accountancy because I'd never heard of a poor accountant. So I thought, let me go to university. But unfortunately, as Liverpool's such a great city, I just got drunk and enjoyed myself way too much for 3 years. At the end of 3 years, I thought, oh my God, I better find some way of paying this huge debt off I've got. So I went to a top 10 accountancy firm and qualified as an ACCA accountant. And during that time, I was in audit, and it was the time 25 years ago, so I'm showing my age, where we had big lever arch files and you had to tick and bash on client audits. And I thought, oh my God, I don't fancy spending 20 years of my my life doing this. So I went to work at Phones for You as a financial controller, loved it, super commercial, looking at numbers, but really getting the commercial impact of that. Moved into sales at IBM, did an MBA, strategy at HP, and then worked in sales director roles. And I guess the idea, Gavin, for ROLABOTIC came about during my work experience when I realized big companies, FTSE 100, Fortune 500, look for independent advice from consultancies. And throughout my career, I thought and I saw and I witnessed that that was not the case. And I felt by setting up a truly independent consulting firm that only had our clients' motive, aspirations at the heart of what we did would be truly disruptive. And 8 years on, and I think you've probably made me sound bigger than I actually am physically and as a company, but we now have 12% of the FTSE 100 as our clients, and that innovation, independence has really resonated with our client set.
That's great, Paresh. Thank you very much. Demure as ever as well. 12% of the FTSE is no mean feat. So I say congratulations to you and well done. But initially, that was great to hear your journey after university and then move through to where you are now and some of the key steps you took there. One thing that struck me straight away as I'm a fellow chartered accountant, just like yourself as well. And many of our students and current alumni go on to work in accountancy fields and finance fields and will often take things like the ACCA or CFA type qualifications. And I just wondered if you could say a little bit more around the transferable skills that you obtained, maybe here at Liverpool, but also as part of your accountancy training and how that's helped you actually develop and ultimately create a business.
Yeah, great question, Gavin. Just thinking aloud. So these are going to be skills, physical skills or numeric skills are important as a chartered accountant, you and I, but it doesn't just stop there. You can be a 5 out of 10 accountant. I'm going to give you 3 softer skills that have really helped me at ROLABOTIC. It's listen, and I'm sure you've seen this all over social media, not listen with the idea to respond, but truly listen. And I'm a culprit, guys. When I left university, I entered very much a sales-based environment where it was sort of closing down the client. But when I've set up ROLABOTIC, it's really about taking a step back, listening to what the client's actually saying, not what you think they're saying or what you think they need. Second thing that stood me in good sense, Gavin, or good stead with the founding of ROLABOTIC is always start with a blank page. We learn lots of great stuff theoretically at university and practically through our work experience. But what's helped ROLABOTIC differentiate ourselves with the big homogenous consulting firms is we always start with a blank piece of paper. Even if we've got an identical technology, people and process set at a client, we always start with a blank page. And Einstein said, always spend 55 minutes looking at the problem and 5 minutes to the solution. That's a fundamental issue in the consulting market. We all want to rush towards AI, robotic process automation. However, most clients' data and structures and technology are not ready for the ingestion of AI. So look at the problem as it is rather than the solution you want to deploy at your client.
That's great, Paresh. And really interesting to hear how you're doing things at ROLABOTIC different to a more sort of traditional long-term consultancy companies, and obviously helps you to stand out from the crowd, and probably the main justification why you've done so well as you have done and will likely do so going forward. I think one thing that fascinates me, both from the questions that we talked about, but also meeting with you beforehand, obviously you're an accountant, and many accountants arguably are numbers led. They love the numbers, they love the data, and it's no bad thing. Data is the new oil, as they say. But one quote that you gave to me was that the fundamentals are more important than the numbers. And I was fascinated by that. And I just wondered if you could perhaps expand on that a little bit more.
Yeah, it's probably the video you guys have just seen, really. When I thought about the consultancy market and a bit of a probably a true game changer part of this whole thing, I've never did management consulting until I set ROLABOTIC up. So that was really a leap into a market I didn't know. But what I realized about typical consultancy, they're looking at utilization rates of their people. How can we land and expand within a client? And I just didn't like that, because consultants are paid to give an independent perspective and have the client at the heart of what they do. So we focus on 3Ps, guys, which focus on our three main stakeholders: people. In typical consultancy businesses, people are just seen as a resource or a utilization model or rate they need to hit. We don't do that. We look after our people. We have a no holiday policy. If it's your kid's birthday, is great, have it off, just let us know. We have a great Glassdoor rating, which is hopefully exemplifies what we do in the first P, which is people. Secondly, we do prototypes, Gavin, which is quite rare in the consultancy market. For example, I'm going to use the University of Liverpool. They want to create a prototype for onboarding students through UCAS. If we build a prototype and University of Liverpool are super happy and they want exclusivity to the prototype, we will do that. So we'll not sell it to University of Manchester or University of Leicester. The consultancy market typically wants to build and then resell that same sort of solution across the market. We do prototypes, so we do that independently. And thirdly is purpose. I come from a very working class background. As you know, Gavin, we've got the University of Liverpool scholarship for underprivileged individuals from socially dynamic backgrounds, and we do work with Villiers Park. So up to 40% of our profits go to charity as well, which is unheard of in the consultancy market, where people are shouting about how the partners earn £1 million a year. I don't think any of us really need £1 million a year, maybe occasionally, but we can survive on a lot less. And if the whole consultancy founder market did the same as what we're doing at RoLABOTIC, we could probably alleviate poverty in the UK as a grand sort of out there sort of theme. So they're the 3Ps: people, prototypes, and purpose.
That's great, Paresh. And I think up to 40% is an absolutely staggering proportion and very admirable. I know many of the larger organizations and companies will often, try and aspire to be in the 1% club. And for you to be talking up to 40%, I think that shows the clear water between you and other companies. So that's great to hear that. I know when I first saw your video and it talked about the 3Ps, and I instantly thought, I know what that is. I know what that is. That's people, profit, and planet. I've seen that before. We teach that, and then it wasn't those at all. So hopefully some of our alumni sort of smiling there at seeing a different 3Ps and your take on the industry, which is great to see. One of the things that obviously we're interested in as a university and our alumni community, though, is around recruitment. Obviously, you need the best and the brightest, and that's what our sort of alumni and current students are, and in fact, what they aim to be as well. And I just wondered, what kind of skills and strengths do you look for when you're potentially considering a new recruit?
That is one of our toughest challenges, Gavin, to be completely frank. So typically, consulting firms look for red brick universities like Liverpool. And what I've found when I set up the businesses, unfortunately, if you get the same sort of people from the same backgrounds, from the same thinking, your innovation and your consulting advice is going to be quite streamlined. So we actually recruit under 3 different criteria. The first one being independence. Demonstrate to me and the company where you've been 100% independent. So example I give most students when they interview is, everyone's got Apple phones, but you've decided to go Samsung. Yeah, not a big deal, but it's showing that you're able to be independent to in your friend circle. Second, we look for people that are willing to challenge the status quo. So, Gavin, example, AI is super popular today. You hear about Apple doing a big agreement with OpenAI, and then Elon Musk talking about security concerns of that and people entering his site. So for us, it's people that are willing to challenge the status quo, whether that be in a technology such as AI or robotic process automation, or challenging common ways of doing things at clients. So, for example, most clients are deploying new ERP all the time, often forced by typical consultancies. But actually, is there another way of doing this? So challenging conventional way of thinking. And the third one, Gavin, is passion. So do you have passion for something? Some of our best roller-bots, as we call them, are martial artists. They love dogs. We love people that have a passion for something, and if they can articulate that well enough, we'd love them to be able to transfer that to us. And I guess, Gavin, in summary, what we're looking for from our customers, the charities we support, and our roller-bots, is we want to be loved. We don't want to be a brand that's liked. I don't want people to say, one of our clients on our website is Enterprise Rent-A-Car. I don't want them to say, we like ROLABOTIC. We've failed then. I want them to say, we love ROLABOTIC. By creating that emotional connection with clients and constantly delivering, you sort of elevate yourself versus the competition.
That's great. Great to hear. Very refreshing as well as an outlook. Thank you for that. Don't forget as well to the people who are currently here on the live session. You can pose any questions that you have in the chat panel. So please do put your questions in there. We can visit them as they come in, or we certainly have some time towards the end of the session allocated for open Q&A. So any questions you have for Paresh, please do pop them into the chat panel. Thanks very much. Okay, let's now continue to move on, because obviously you have launched a successful business and continue to grow and drive that business and give back through charities, the community, and obviously your university as well. And we do appreciate your support as an alumnus. But obviously with any sort of corporate launch, there's bound to be some challenges, some failures, things that you've overcome at some stage. And I wondered, for the benefit of the community of alumni, some of whom may be thinking about launching a business, or maybe have done, or are in the process of doing, what kind of reflections do you have on any challenges or failures that you may have encountered in your journey?
Yeah, really, really good, Gavin. I'm going to be very open with the alumni. I thought I had the Midas touch, so I'll just briefly go through my career. Passed my accountancy exams within 2 years, thankfully due to exemptions from University of Liverpool. So thought I was great, top of my year, went to Phones for You, financial controller, one of the youngest financial controllers, great. IBM, I won some global sales award. Happy days, I'm the best of the best. HP, running strategy, being a sales director, and actually setting my own business up, Gavin, and expecting to turn over a couple of million in 12 months was the biggest how do I put this, with being politically correct on the call, and try not to swear, Gavin, but biggest realization for me, guys, that whatever you've done prior to being your own business is nothing. I was probably operating, I didn't realize, at 4 to 5 out of 10. I thought I was busy going to sales meetings and closing deals, but you have massive brands behind you. IBM and HP are multi-billion-pound brands. ROLABOTIC, people don't even know they exist. So for me, the biggest challenge was, Gavin, was getting over the fact that I've left the corporate world and I can't rely on the safety. You don't even realize that's there. You're an unknown. So it's about building your brand, your reputation. It's, how do I get leads, Gav? How do I say to a client, oh yeah, we can do an independent RPA project? They'll go, okay, can you give me a client that's done that with you? And you're like, not yet, but I'm working on it. So that was the biggest realization. So in terms of timeline, guys, we're 8 years old. First 2 years were painful. The salary trap, I was very well paid prior to setting up ROLABOTIC. You know, it can cause personal challenges within your relationships with your friends and family as well. However, after the first 2 years, 2 years were great prior to COVID, Gavin. We won a large Copenhagen headquartered brewery, a Swiss insurer, and we were flying. I thought I'd made it. My Midas touch had returned, Gavin. However, COVID kicked in, and being very much a face-to-face, shake the CFO's hand sort of consultancy boutique, expensive, we were almost annihilated during COVID for 2 years. So we had 2 good years, 2 poor years, 2 awesome years, 2 resetting years, as I call them. But the last 24 months have been amazing. We've probably grown 3-4-fold in the last 12 months. So yeah, it's so I guess back to your question, really, in a roundabout ways, leave behind what you think is your own status quo. Challenge the fact that your salary, your American Express card, your company car, your benefits, your gym membership, your LinkedIn membership, your mobile phone, all of that is no longer paid for somebody. So you need to start from scratch and really let go of some of those cushy things you may have had and realize you're out on your own now. And I'm going to sound a bit pessimistic, Gavin, because I do mentor a number of startups and invest in. I tell them to think 3 times. First, think about, it's a salary you're leaving behind. Second, the personal challenges, your partner, your kids, it's a massive time commitment. And thirdly, your own ego. So I'm going to be very open with the alumni. I thought I'm going to use a very northern term here, Gavin, so apologies, but Johnny Big Balls, I thought anything I touch, I will complete and close. I tell you what, the biggest realization, Gavin, was setting up RoLABOTIC and realizing maybe I don't have that Midas touch, and actually inwardly looking at yourself and going, how do I need to change to be successful?
That's great, Paresh. I really appreciate the frankness and transparency in there. It's not every day you get to hear sort of the inner workings of someone who's been through that journey. So I'm sure that's invaluable to many of us here on the webinar at the moment. Another question for you, if that's okay, and don't forget I can see some questions coming in as well on the chat panel. So do continue to do that, and we will visit those questions in around about 10 minutes or so. But one question I had sort of personally as well was obviously looking to the future, thinking about you as an individual, your corporation. What's the kind of, I hate to use the classic, where do you see yourself in 5 or 10 years? But that, I was almost intrigued about what does the future hold? Is it about growth, sustainability, diversification, selling on to another larger organization? Where do you see the future for you?
That's really interesting, Gavin. I'm supposed to have an answer, but I don't really. But I'm going to talk around it a little bit. So when I set up RoLABOTIC, we were purely consultancy, typically competing with the big guys, because I realized there was a lot of dissatisfaction within the FTSE 100 to begin with. However, as time's gone, we've got our own IP, Gavin. So after fixing a number of distressed projects, we realized there's commonality. And what we've done is we've built some code. It's not saleable software code, but the way we've moved is from a chunky consultancy business, getting 6- and 7-figure transactions with clients, to moving to a standing order monthly direct debit business. What they get with that is initial scope, my people on site, the roller-bots on site, apologies, building out prototypes and taking that to production and educating their super users. And then they just pay as a nominal monthly fee. So that's been quite a change. Our annual recurring revenue from that has just gone over 7 figures. So it's the right way. So it's building that out, Gavin. For me, it's quality rather than growth. What I mean is, I don't want to become too big, have too many clients, and our quality depletes, and that's where you get reputational damage in the consultancy market. And you can search most of the large guys, they've done something that's probably not been great for the reputation. For me, it's about growth, but growth that's profitable, and that we can deliver upon. So one thing that's unique about RoLABOTIC, we have a RoLABOTIC guarantee. So when a client gets to a certain level, if we do not deliver within budget, within time, within schedule, we will refund 100% of the client fees, which is unheard of in our market. And to do that, Gavin, you can't have hundreds of projects going on at any one time, because you're going to drop the ball. So we're about a quality boutique. We're like the Lamborghini of consulting. And because we do the prototypes and offer exclusivity, if we're with University of Liverpool, as I mentioned on the student onboarding, we've just taken out all the other universities out of the world. So we just want the top 1, 2, or 3 in any sector signing up exclusively with RoLABOTIC, and they get all of our innovation outputs from our innovation engine, and they get those lovely prototypes that they can move into production.
That's great. And just thinking about that in terms of those sort of top 2 or 3 in any given sector, do you have certain sectors that you specialize in particularly, or are you quite transferable to move between sectors and different industry verticals, do you think?
We're quite transferable.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at some of our clients, we've got, Enterprise Rent-A-Car, we've got Sir Robert McAlpine, who are a construction building company. So we are transferable. So we can work with any company that's got challenges in needing to automate, be more efficient, are looking for true innovation, or looking for strategy around growth or efficiency or operational excellence. So as long as any company of a size has got those issues or that part of the business, we can work with. So we don't have any verticals that we typically work within.
Great. And some of these questions are my own, just pure interest in terms of into your journey and what you've done. But I wonder when you obviously hindsight is a wonderful thing, but when you reflect on your path and your journey of ups and downs, mainly ups and doing very well at the moment, which is great. Is there anything you wish you'd done differently, or anything you wish you'd done which you'd not done, etc.? Or are you quite happy with the path that you took?
Yeah, I think social media is great, guys, LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram, but we can get carried away. And when you're on a high, it's great. And also when you're on a low, it can amplify the fact, actually, I haven't got a job post-university. I'm not as successful as John Smith that's working at this investment bank. So what I would say is one thing that's helped me through the challenges and successes is get the right people around you. They're personally your friends and family, but in business, if you look on LinkedIn and places like that, lots of people explaining how they've built businesses, but I would actually get real mentors that have done it and have your interests at heart, basically. So finding the right people personally and from a business perspective, and getting a routine, guys. I love, as I mentioned at the start, Gavin, I'm a social drinker. I love going out socializing. It took me 2, 3, 4 years to realize, actually, going out on a Thursday evening and having quite a few beers and then trying to operate your own business, it's maybe easier when you're in a big corporate, is not going to work. So I've created a routine. I go to the gym a day a week. I run twice a week. I'm at my desk those 2 days at 8 a.m. And I create other routines. So as our cash balance has grown in RoLABOTIC, I'm a bit nervous at having more than 85,000 in each bank account. So every Monday morning, even though I've got a team, I check each bank account. It's for personal gratification to remind me how hard I've worked to get that, but it's just a routine. I do that. And I look at the 4 or 5 companies I'm mentoring and investing in and just have a quick look at them, look at their accounts, look at what they're doing. So routine, get a good set of people around you personally and business, and then think about next steps as you've asked me. So I'm going to contradict myself here. What do I want in the future? What does RoLABOTIC in the future look like? This IP we have, this monthly operating model we have, what's next? Do we want to acquire somebody? Do we want to be acquired? I don't know. So I don't know if that answered your question, Gavin, because
No, it did. I mean, you know, it sounds like there's more questions than answers in a way, and that there's so many opportunities. It's just well, exciting, I think, is probably the phrase I would use. And interesting to hear you talk about the 85,000, and that's something we still teach in the finance and management group as well here at the university. So always make sure that you're up to that limit and no more to give you full protection.
unless it's with NS&I, right? Because that's backed off the government.
Yeah. Might sneak that one into the exam next
time.
Well, we're just coming up to the top of the hour now. We've got a bit more time left through until sort of 25 past or so. So I'm really keen to hear from the audience members, if that's okay. I can see some, we've got sort of 3 questions so far, which, Paresh, if it's okay with you, I'll just sort of restate to you if that's okay. But to anyone else who has a question, feel free to pop the question into the chat panel, and we'll try and get through them all. So the first question is from Pulkit. So Pulkit's question, just to paraphrase, is how do you balance your time between professional fee earning work and work around things like office management, HR, etc.? Do you have a perfect ratio, or do you sort of have a different system for balancing those 2 competing forces?
Yeah, really interesting, because obviously fee earning in a typical consulting market is your utilization rate, right? And internal stuff doesn't have a direct revenue model. So originally, Gavin, and I've forgotten who asked the question, we did sort of loosely work around that, but it wasn't working because, as I explained, I want our clients to love us. So if we've only put 20 hours of an analyst's time and it takes them 40, and we're constantly asking for a change request or a bigger invoice, or a biggest purchase order even, that's just not going to work. You know, we've agreed to a fixed piece of work. We need to deliver within that, because the typical consulting companies are always trying to bill more. So we did originally start with that model, how much is billable to external clients, how much is internal work, but we don't have those metrics now. Our single metrics are a quarterly catch-up call I have with clients. And if I hear the word love more than like, and it sounds really soft, Gavin, but that really works for us, because once you elevate yourself to a love brand within your clients, it's not about your price. It's not about you're only small. You've only got 50 people. It's about these guys deliver. They have a reputation. They care about their people. They build us unique stuff. And oh, by the way, they give a load more to charity than any other consulting firm in the world as a percentage of their profits. So, yeah, we start there to answer the question, but as we evolved, it just doesn't work for us to be the brand we want to be, and the sort of way we want to articulate ourselves to the market.
That's great to hear. And obviously reflecting on my own past and in working in audit as well in accountancy, as you say, utilization was everything. It was so important, wasn't it? Utilization. So to hear your approach sort of tip that on its head, and for the key metric to be a phone call to each client from yourself, that's fantastic. You must really enjoy getting that instant feedback, right?
It is really good, actually.
Yeah.
And I guess we have weekly calls with the clients, and I occasionally come on and they're like, they're almost really careful. And actually, a really funny one, Gavin, and this is about the love brand, and this is factual. It was one of our top 3 clients 2 weeks ago. I get on the call, and the operations director is like, Paresh, you're not billing us enough. Our monthly standing orders should be bigger. I will ask all of you on the alumni call, how many consultancies get asked to bill their client more? And I could not believe it. I show that snippet to every new starter now at a certain level to go, this is what I mean by a love brand. They know we're delivering massive value. They're asking us to build them more. I think that's unheard of, Gavin, unless you tell me it.
No, definitely not. I know. Yeah, not at all. I don't think I've ever heard of that. I think it's an ultimate indictment of success, isn't it? That's fantastic. We've got some more questions coming in now, which is great. If I'm okay to read some more to you, Paresh.
Yeah, go for it.
So the next one is from Akeem, who says hello, and he obviously thanks you for the inspiring story. But he does ask, what was the catalyst for you to leave the safety, security, and prestige of a big corporate? And how did you know it was the right move for you? I guess the assumption there is that you did know. Maybe you didn't, but
Akeem, I did not know. If you'd asked me 2 years ago, I still didn't know, because the cash had ran out, and I was like, oh my God, what have I done? So to the first part of your question, what was a catalyst? I was bored, guys, to be completely frank. I'm going to maybe blow my own trumpet shortly, but and I'll be very open with you all, I was able to earn 6 figures by the time I was 24. And that was always an aspiration, coming from a working class background, to be able to hit this sort of salary bracket I thought was aspirational. Then once you do 6 figures, you want to do multiple 6 figures, etc. It all happened relatively quickly for me. And I was bored, Akeem. That was really it. I could look at myself and look at my final pension pot and my Lamborghini and all this and think, oh, that's brilliant. But boredom set in. And I realized I didn't want to look back at 60 and go, I could have done something different. So I was bored, and I didn't want to look back and say I hadn't at least given it a go. Akeem, to be honest, after that first 2 years before those 2 large clients came on, in the last 2 years, I still didn't know it was a right move for you. So I'm sure if you asked me in 2 years and the business maybe isn't performing as well, so I can't say I knew how this was a right move for me. I was getting complacent in corporates, if I'm completely honest, with the alumni community. Everything came a little bit too easy, and I wanted to be a bit more challenged, because I felt I had more to give, and that was probably the reason. And my wife has been very supportive, actually, and that's a key thing, is one of the things I mentioned before. Get the right people around you, because it can be a highly stressful time when you give up that big salary and 2 years have gone. You've got mortgage, you may have school fees, you've got cars, you've got lots of stuff going out, and your partner really needs to be on that journey with you as well.
That's great insight, and yeah, wonderful kind of honesty to the realities of what that looks like, I guess. So thank you for that. We have another question now from I think it's pronounced Uatavi, and I do apologize if I'm getting that wrong. But also says thank you for the inspiring story, and then asks the question: how do you balance your asset growth of the company versus cash flow? And I guess I'll follow up with that and say, we always teach students cash is king,
Yes.
but is it, and how do you sort of approach that balance?
Interesting one. So I don't know if you teach this, Gavin, but obviously we're a good business charter certified company, so we pay our fair rate of taxes in the UK as part of that certification. However, there are interesting ways of doing stuff. So the way we're looking to increase the asset growth is through having our own small self-administered pension scheme. And that pension scheme can go into buying commercial property. So the ROLABOTIC Limited can pay its employer contributions to the pension fund, and the pension fund can buy company assets, commercial buildings and land, and actually they could be leased back to the company. So that's an example of asset growth. My mantra is never revenue, it's cash flow first. And therefore, when we started the business, guys, we were on a retainer basis with most of our clients. So you pay us, for example, 100K. That gives you access to our full scale and scope of people, and this at every level of how many people you could get. So cash has always been our number one metric financially, then profit, and then revenue. So hopefully that answers the question, Gavin.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you for that. Also great to hear that what you do in practice is what we teach, because it's very rare to get that feedback loop closed. So that's great to hear. Our next question then, and please do keep the questions coming, team. Our next question is from Senate. So Senate is an undergraduate student studying a broad business-like international business degree. And they ask, what kind of advice would you give? Which I guess is important given your background as an MBA, which is a bit more general, and also accountancy, which is a bit more focused. Like, what kind of advice would you have, and different advice for such a student, perhaps?
Yeah, from an undergraduate, I guess work out what you enjoy doing, really, because for me, and I'm going to be very frank with you, I was quite driven to earn as much as I could as quickly as possible. So take what you can in your international business, and if you have the same initial wants as I did, look at where your degree will leverage that outcome. So for example, it could be investment banking, management consulting, training as a chartered accountant. So my advice would be take your broad business, I think you mentioned international business that you're studying, think about its application into where you see yourself in the future. So for me, it would have been use international business to get into investment banking as an example. So leverage what you've done for the future, basically. I don't know if that's what Senate was looking for, but no,
that's great. That's wonderful. Thank you for that. Let's move on to it. This is a particularly good question, actually. I think this is from Ekau, who asks, also says thank you for sharing, but that he'd like to hear your views on remote working and the impact on productivity of remote working in consulting services delivery. They also go on to say, if you are positive towards remote working, what do you think about harnessing global expertise through remote resourcing in your organization?
Wow, great question. That was Ekau, did you say, Gavin?
I think so, yeah. I'm not sure if my pronunciation's correct, but yeah, Ekau.
Great. So I think at the outset of the call, I mentioned I want to be a love brand. So I want our clients to love us, society, hopefully, with what we do through the scholarship, and also our rollerbots, our people, to love us. We've never had a challenge between working in and out, because through the 2 difficult years, our team realized that for us to be effective, we need to be readily available in the office when a client's come, or on client site. And actually, a great example was a large telco company we do work with, and our decision maker, our budget holder and decision maker there was always loved that we'd be on site, because it gave her an excuse to invite all her team in because we were in. So I don't really have a view, but because we're small, all of our rollerbots understand that we have to work harder than the other larger consulting firms. And if their teams are all off-site and hybrid working, and we're willing to turn up on-site and deliver this high-value, high-cost consulting, it's actually a differentiator. And so I don't dictate that to my team. They actually want to do it because they know it's for the value of our small business. I don't know how that will work as well for large, homogenized consulting businesses. So I think that's hopefully answered the first part of it. I'm absolutely positive towards remote working, because we have a lot of single parents who need to drop their children off in the morning and need to leave at 3 to pick their son or daughter up from nursery because the only parent around. So absolutely flexible. I guess the one rule we do have is try and pass that off to another rollerbot or let the project lead know that you're doing that, just so there isn't a customer sat issue. So absolutely positive. I've not had to lay down a policy to my team because they understand we're a small company and we need to do everything to differentiate ourselves against the other consulting companies to create that love brand within our clients.
That's great, Paresh. Thank you for that. We'll keep moving through with a few more questions and then we will have to close shortly. But the next question in the order that they've been raised is from Mansour. And just to paraphrase, so Mansour asks, how do you handle emerging trends that might be questioned or asked by clients, but that they're not necessarily in their best interest? I guess the parallel here is, my field is fintech. Quite often companies will approach us about something which is happening in fintech, but is ultimately going to undermine what they currently do. How do you handle that?
Yeah, really interesting question, Mansour. So we have 4 sort of strands to our business, and this will probably help you understand where we're at. If you imagine on the one end, we can educate clients on emerging trends. So for example, our most popular workshop is who, what, where, when, and why of robotic process automation. This is when we give them our truly independent perspective of an emerging trend. So we give them the positives, the negatives, and what has worked and hasn't worked. Once that works, or once we've done that independent education workshop, we can then build a strategy for the client. In that strategy, there's normally a return investment and a business case. If the business case doesn't stack up, we'll make that very clear at that point, and the project will probably not get onto the next stage, which is a proof of concept, proof of value, or a pilot stage. So the way we handle it is if the client engages us early enough, we can give them independent advice on the emerging trends, specifically how that trend is going to impact their industry and their business. And then if we're helping them with a strategy and the business case, it will be obvious that the business case doesn't stack up and it's not in their best interest. But I'm going to put a however. However, a lot of our companies' business cases fall over, but they still want to be seen to be experimenting, and that creates great stakeholder engagement through customers or their own teams to see that even though they're willing to fail and this trend doesn't have a true business case, the company is still willing to invest to see if they can learn something or create a side solution, even though the trend doesn't look like it's going to impact them or their industry. That's great, Paresh. Thank you for that. Let's move on to the next question now, which is from Jake. So this is a particularly important one. This is around your MBA background and being an MBA graduate. Obviously, to embark on an MBA is quite expensive. Fees are normally relatively high. Often it can take 1 to 2 years. There's a big opportunity cost of stepping away from your career to study it, unless you do it part-time, which obviously has different stresses and strains. But Jake asks, how important was your MBA in starting your business? Yeah, really important. I guess I started that because I was bored, as I think I alluded to earlier, that I thought I had this Midas touch. There must be something else. And being in big blue chip corporates, they really value MBAs. So how important was the MBA? I think the one thing it taught me was 2 things, actually. I'm going to give you a specific, but listening, because as you guys may have realized, I love talking and hearing the sound of my own voice. So it was great for me to listen to all my fellow MBA graduates and properly listen to them, because you've got the time invested. You're not trying to close a sales transaction or sell them something or consult to them. You're in a really open working environment, friendly educational environment with fellow people that have got business experience. So listening, and I guess one thing that does strike me about my MBA and my time at Liverpool is I learned about John Forbes Nash and his evolution of game theory. And if I give you a really specific example of how I thought about building RoLABOTIC versus the status quo is, if you imagine the consultancy market is here, they're constantly looking at utilization rates. People are a resource. They're not treated as individuals. They're trying to sell clients, land and expand. I looked at that and I thought, I don't want to be involved in that market. I want to create my own market. My own market is care for my people, good salaries, no holiday policy, no utilization, giving a massive chunk of profit away to charity, unlike the big guys who are constantly boasting about how each of their MDs and partners earn £1 million a year. I create my own market, and therefore the consultancy market, from a game theory perspective, cannot compete with us, because no big consulting partner is going to give up 60 to 80% of his take-home salary. They're not going to do a no-holiday policy, because then utilization rates are going to go through the floor. So it was thinking about game theory when I was doing my scraps of paper and thinking about ROLABOTIC and looking at the failings of the current consultancy model as I saw it, and how we could differentiate and never have to compete on price. We never compete on price. We are probably the most expensive consulting firm. And I'm including the MBB firms in there as well, Gavin, in the marketplace.
That's great. That's really, really interesting to hear. You know, genuine disruption with a motive and a heart, I guess you might say. So fantastic to hear that. The next question comes from Jack. So Jack, obviously, thanks you as well for your inspiring talk. Very interested in what you said about mentors. And then Jack's question is, do you have any tips for finding and connecting with these types of mentors within the consultancy sector?
Oh, interesting. Within the consultancy sector. Okay. I guess I'll talk about the consulting sector in a second, but if I talk about my personal mentors, and it's going to be a bit of a soppy one for some of you, but my dad's ran his own business since 1985. So even though he's not in the consultancy market, he knows the ups and downs of running a real business. Because often when you go to mentors who claim to be business advisors, etc., the first question I asked a lot of people who pitch to me is, have you ran your own business? Whether you've been successful or failed, have you? And typically that would be the question of a mentor if you're setting up. Have you ran a business? Not advised a business, that's one thing. Have you ran a business? And if you failed, I'm still happy to engage with them. So that's when I'm looking at mentors personally for ROLABOTIC, because a lot of hearsay and a lot of theory that's never been applied, which is great, but you can go and maybe sell that service elsewhere. So mentors in the consultancy space, one advice would be there's the MCA, the Management Consulting Association, which is all big, large consulting firms are partners there as partners of the MCA. They run events, so get yourself across to those events and begin networking. I think the CBI do events, the Confederation of British Industry, and the Institute of Directors do a lot of events, local events. They have student access sometimes, so you can leverage the fact you're a student or a recent graduate, and you can get invited to these meetings and meet a network there.
That's great. That's great. I think we're probably moving towards our final question rapidly, but let's see how we go. So the question here is from Murugan, who asks about whether you're thinking of exporting your services or concept.
Well, I guess exporting is with consultancy. Some clients say to us, "You're selling thin air," right? Because it's sometimes not an output. So you could argue we're already exporting, because we have clients in Copenhagen, in Switzerland, in North America. So it's not like a physical product. So with our UK-based team, we can service the world within reason. So I'd say we're sort of already on that journey. And I guess to summarize, I don't know if people have realized, ROLABOTIC's named after my son, RoHan, my daughter, LAila, and as our first client was fixing a distressed robotic process automation project. The reason why I say that is, being quite a family man, the plan was, Gavin, to have only UK and I FTSE 100 based clients. Our first two clients were in Copenhagen and Switzerland. So take from that what you will, but that's without having any client references, or very few. We were able to already sell our differentiated consulting approach outside of the UK market. So consulting is quite easy to export, I'd say. The biggest challenge I have to maybe just circle and bottom that off is people, finding those great people who are independent, can challenge the status quo and have passion. I can get loads of first and 2-1 people from even Liverpool, but it's actually being able to have those three attributes I really find of great value, and that's what we recruit for. We don't recruit for grades or qualifications. We recruit against those three sort of softer characteristics which have created some of our greatest rollerbots in the past.
That's great, Paresh. Thank you. I can also say as well, Lisa has just posted the URL to the Management Consultancies Association, which Paresh just mentioned. So if you do want to find the link for that, you can just click into the chat box there. So we are now moving into the last sort of 5 minutes or so. So before I sort of close and sort of sum up and obviously thank Paresh for sparing his time, I'd maybe just come back to Paresh one more time to see if there's any other closing remarks or anything else he'd like to share in terms of either his talk today or his experiences so far as a successful alumnus.
Yeah, I'm going to leave you guys with a little acronym we use with clients, which is CSI. This isn't the program on TV, Crime Scene Investigators, but you can reference it to that. So when you're thinking about your business, think about CSI. Is it difficult to copy? So can somebody else quickly do that? S, is it scalable? If I get this right in a client like Liverpool, can I do it in Manchester, etc.? Can the concept be scalable? And the I is, does it require investment? If you can tick those boxes and you have got a startup idea, you've got my website address and you can get in touch with me. And I do sponsor and invest in a lot of startups. So CSI, make it difficult to copy, make it scalable, and it requires investment. That's not always physical money investment. It could be time, resources, R&D, lots of different things. So I'll leave you with that CSI, guys.
That's great, Paresh. Thank you for that. And certainly one to remember going forward. I can also see that Lisa has popped the URL in there for the RoLABOTIC main website. So as Paresh said there, you can go and find out more information there if you wish to, or indeed, I imagine there'll be various contact details, etc. there, should you have need of it. So it just leaves me now just to say, just for a few minutes, some words, some kind words again, mainly around Paresh giving up his time today. Obviously coming along for an hour at lunchtime for such a senior individual is very much appreciated here by his old university. We do appreciate it. So on behalf of myself, Lisa and Andy and the team here at the University of Liverpool Management School, we do appreciate your time. This is obviously the inaugural talk, kindly sponsored and run by Lisa Garrity. This is her brainchild, so do look out for more talks to come in the Game Changers webinar series, interviewing different successful alumni from different parts of the world and different sectors. But I don't think we could have got off to a better start than we have done. It's been absolutely wonderful to meet you, Paresh. So again, thank you for sparing your time. Don't forget to the attendees today, just in the final few moments, if you do have any last questions, feel free to pop them on the chat panel. We could always maybe pitch these to Paresh and then come back to you. But I think we managed to get all questions there. Lisa, are you happy we addressed all questions before we close?
Yes, that's really great. Thanks so much. And thanks from me to both Gav and to Paresh for today. Really interesting. And yeah, I will circulate the recording to those who've signed up and those who've been here today. And it's been great to see. We've had alumni today from the Philippines, Austria, Morocco, Bermuda, Angola, Kenya, Nigeria, UK, China, India, and more. So really appreciate it and great to see you all here.